Ole Miss takes care of Cal State Bakersfield 82-60 on the farewell game of Tad Smith Coliseum. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Let's overreact, as always, to this game.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well on the football side. We want to thank you for tuning in to the Locked On podcast, now the number one sports podcast in all of America, and that is largely thanks to you. On today's show, we're going to look back at the last game in Tad Smith Coliseum with Ole Miss taking care of the Cal State Bakersfield Roadrunners. We'll talk about what we noticed in that game. We'll talk about the farewell to Tad Smith Coliseum, because I am not going to lie, that game made me feel kind of a way to see it going away. And in the third segment, as always, we will take your questions. Remember, if you comment, please put where you're commenting from so we can call that out as well. Remember, we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. Listen, it was sad to see Tad Smith Coliseum go out, where that was the final game. At least Ole Miss won the game. They're open. They put on a stat during the game that the opening of Tad Smith Coliseum was against number one Kentucky, a game that was lost. And it's like, man, pick something easier than that to open it up. But Ole Miss chose to do that for whatever reason. And the Rebels kind of moved forward. They just kept going, pushing the game. It went to a 5-point game, to a 10-point game, to a 15-point game, to a 20-point game. Cal State Bakersfield, the Roadrunners were overmatched. But you could see Rod Barnes' fingerprints all over that team with the way they played defense and the physicality. It was a throwback to the Rob Evans, Rod Barnes time. And they had some guys that could score some points and at times looked fairly dangerous, but Ole Miss was the superior team on the night. Just period. I mean, AJ Storr, let's look at some of the statistics of individual players in this game. You have AJ Storr, who had 16 points. He was only 0 for 1 on three-point shooting, so it was all the two-point variety in the free throw line for him. Ilias Kamerdine had 10 points. Malik Dia had 10 points. And it just like there's several people on the team that would score from like 6 to 10 points. Travis Perry had a couple of big three-point shots, including one extremely long one that he hit that was just dead eye. It was fantastic to see. Patton Peekins has surprised me at the early part of this season. Being a true freshman and looking like he's just getting himself in the rotation. That's kind of an impressive thing. The front court for this Ole Miss basketball team, though, after the struggles that this team has had over the last couple of years to rebound the basketball, it's cool seeing James Scott and Corey Chest and Augusto Cassia and those guys working down low. Their physical presence, and they're really good and make you earn every single basket that you have in the paint. That is a really cool thing. And this was an off night by Ilias Kamerdine. He had 10 points for the game, but it was kind of an off game. Keza Jifa, kind of an off game. The guards did not have the game that they had against Memphis earlier in the week, and Ole Miss was still able to win by 22 points. It was a solid team effort. They just got it done, and they got out of there with a victory in an environment that's a little bit different than they had played in at any point. That was like going into a road environment and shooting, because you don't shoot in Tad Smith Coliseum very often. So you probably had your walk through and your shoot around and real quick play the game. And it took a little bit of time for them to get going. So it was impressive to see how they handled this situation, especially going against a team that will absolutely D you up. period. They will D you up. Now, we're going to have a little bit of a shorter show than we normally do because it was Cal State Bakersfield. And it is sad that Tad Smith Coliseum, I saw Tim Thomas, who was at the game. He was there for the last game in Tad Smith. And they had streamers up above. If everybody remembers, like in the late 90s when Keith Carter and those guys were doing it, they do the streamers. Now, it was a lot thicker streamers up there, but they did that, and they did it tonight. And that was kind of cool. I guess there wasn't a mascot you could repel, even though I saw something from Ryan McGee that had Tony the Land Shark on it earlier today, but whatever, that's fine. But they did it up as best they could. The basketball team came through. I guess the crowd, we'll just call it the crowd because it's not the student section like the Rob Evans and Rod Barnes would come through to the court, but it was the crowd. They came down to the shoot around the beginning of the game. They blew it out, and Ole Miss, I kind of deserved to send the Tad Smith Coliseum out like this. It was pretty fun to see. They made some shots. They took care of business. They have Austin Peay on Tuesday, and then they're off for a week, and then they have Iowa in the tournament out in, I guess, Palm Springs shortly after that. But they've gotten off to a 4-0 start, and that's pretty much where you want them to be, honestly, if we're going to be real about it. All right, when we come back, we're going to do a little box score madness, and then the third segment, we were going to take your questions. Remember to comment, put where you're commenting from so I can shout that out, and we'll just talk in the comment section for 10, 15 minutes or whatever's necessary or however long it takes. So those comments are more than welcome if you put them in. That's coming up in about 5 minutes. So stick around for that. You know, the weekend is almost here. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. For Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss delivered in a big way. He went 29 for 33 for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. The threes were wild for Trinidad against the Citadel in about a half of work. When the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance was not a fluke. Trinidad Chambliss is on a streak. And just like Trinidad Chambliss delivered for Ole Miss, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. You stack it up all season long, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday to keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period runs through November 18th. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to at the moment and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this for free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's coming in December. More details as we have it. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. That's pretty cool indeed. All right. So one thing is interesting. I need to bring it in because I didn't bring it in before. But looking at the box score in this game, it's interesting to me a little bit because Cal State Bakersfield shot pretty well. They played physical. They didn't out-rebound Ole Miss, but the percentage-wise, they were pretty good. They didn't shoot many three-point shots because that's a weakness of that team. But when you look at the numbers, you can see them performing at a level. Ole Miss had 44% shooting, 5 of 19 from 3. They struggled a little bit. Like I said, this was almost like two teams playing a road game because you can't imagine this Ole Miss basketball team shot very much in that facility. Ole Miss only had 4 turnovers for the game. That's a pretty big deal of what's going on, especially with the way that Bakersfield guards you. Ole Miss had 43 rebounds, 20 fouls for the game. Cal State Bakersfield shot 43%, only 2 for 9 from three-point range. They had 13 turnovers. They had 34 rebounds and 20 fouls in the game. It was an interesting possession and seeing what would happen and how it went. both teams went through scoring laws in this game. They both had problems from time to time. Not exactly sure why, but it happened. Let's see. Bakersfield had CJ Hardy, who had 19, AJ George, 11 points, and Ronald Jessney, 11 points as well. And just looking at all this stuff, they did have 11 offensive rebounds. Ole Miss had 20. That kind of lets you know. Ole Miss had 20 offensive rebounds for the game. The players that I was most impressed with in the game and that I want to see moving forward, I want to see Travis Perry getting his three-point shot going from the outside. I want to see Elias Kamerdine, AJ Storr, Malik Dia just be themselves. They're obviously the alpha dogs of this team. Kesa Jifa, I want to see him. He's a pretty smooth guy around the goal, and he is excellent in the mid-range game. This basketball team is really good. There's not really any getting around that. This basketball team is really good. And looking at what they can do moving forward, you have Austin Peay. That's another game you should probably get. Then it picks up. You play Iowa, and then there's likely going to be another big-name team in that tournament. And you still have St. John's to go. You still have some really big non-conference game. Miami coming up into the Pavilion in December before you get into SEC play. And we all know the gauntlet that is SEC basketball at the moment. So it's nice to see them progressing. And it does actually look like they are progressing as a basketball team and getting ready for games like that. And it should be interesting. All right, so when we come back, we are going to take your comments if they're in the comment section. If you want to talk about basketball, that's fine. If you want to talk about anything else, we can do that as well. If not, we will get out of here early, which honestly would kind of make me feel all right with college football coming up tomorrow with everything that's going on. But whenever we come back, your comments, just kind of loose, freestyle, all of that stuff coming up next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comeback that's on its way. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel and sign up and play your game with FanDuel.com, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so let's get fired up real quick and talk about this. If nobody wants to talk about some stuff in the comment section, I understand it's a little bit late. We'll cut it short and get ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow on the show, we have the pregame show with Mike Huseman that will be at 5 Eastern, 4 Central. We'll talk about the Ole Miss Florida football game and everything that is going on. Probably it's some of the games that are happening earlier in the day as well. And immediately after the game, we will react to whatever we see. Ole Miss wins the game. They basically punched their ticket into the college football playoff. It's a game that Ole Miss absolutely has to have, and it's important for Ole Miss to get there, and they should get there. Honestly, if we're going to be real about it, they should get there. And if they're able to pull that off, they're going to make it into the college football playoff, and that is the goal. And I did a video a little bit earlier, I guess earlier in the week, that said the timing of what happened on Thursday was the issue that I had with what was going on, because what Saturday is supposed to mean for this Ole Miss Rebel fan base. All of the other stuff that is going on needs to be pushed aside and be all about the playoff. If that happens, you will be all right. If you let the other stuff psyop you, Saturday night could be a difficult game because of the talent that's on the other side of the field. So we'll see. I know that this week turned into a little bit of a circus. I know this week got a little bit weird, but that doesn't change the calculus of what is going on. We'll see what the football team looks like at the beginning of the game. This is a football game that you want to front run in. And if you can front run in, you're going to win the game. It's late night. I understand that everybody getting ready for the football game tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, but we don't have any comments, so there's no questions to take. So we're not going to take any questions. So thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Hotty toddy. Rest in peace, Tad Pad. Rest in peace.